Hi, welcome to Urban Insights. I'm Jayashree Kurup. I have with me Debolina Kundu. She is the director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, a premier think tank associated with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs of the Government of India. Thank you so much for joining us, Debolina. Debolina, we're talking about the role of technology and the role of proper governance standards in managing the cities. First, tell us about how many cities India has. What are the new cities that are coming up? And we've just come out of the mission is ending for the smart cities. What are our learnings that will go through to the future?
So, coming to the numbers first, we had 4,041 statutory towns. As you are aware, that urban development is a state subject, so it's with the domain of the state governments to declare new towns and cities. So, in between 2011 and 2025, we are currently in the absence of the 2021 census taking place from our association with the ministry, we get a figure of more than 4,900 statutory towns, which is roughly around 800 plus statutory towns having been added in the last census decade. So this is one part. And in addition, we also last census 2011 2011 did bring out 2,530 new census towns which qualify the census definition of at least 5,000 population density of 400 persons per square kilometer, and at least 75% of the male main workers in non-farm activities. So all these three criteria taken together, if any settlement qualifies them, then that settlement transforms from rural to urban. But there's a catch here. Until and unless the state government recognizes these settlements as urban, they continue to function under the rural administration. So we find several such census towns coming up in the cities or in the states of Kerala. So if you look at Kerala as only by official definition, Kerala had 25% level of urbanization. But when you add the census towns, it's around 48% urban in the year 2011. So maybe by even by conservative estimates, we have added around 1,000 in the last decade, which really means we have in total around 5,000 statutory towns and 5,000 census towns, which is a big number if you look at the number of settlements. And another point which is emerging is also that we have a very top heavy urban structure where 70% of the urban population is constituted by a handful of 500 class 1 cities which are more than 100,000 in population. So this is also one of the remarkable features of the way we are urbanizing. And we also have a very bottom heavy number of small towns, be it census towns or statutory towns, those towns which are in the less than 100,000 in population, maybe in the population range of 5,000 to 50,000. Here we have lot many numbers. So around 9,500 small towns in the country spread across various states. And we are urbanizing at a rate which is not very high. We generally get to hear that India is urbanizing at a very fast rate, which is actually not true. It was the 80s when we registered the highest growth rate, and subsequently there has been a systematic decline in the growth rates. And the last census decade, we did register for the first time an increase from 2.73 to 2.76%, an increase of 0.03%, and which was basically because of the addition of the new census towns. And coming to your question of how the what has been the learnings, I think the learnings from the smart cities have been quite a bit. Although smart cities are criticized at times for bringing the digital divide in cities, but I suppose smart cities have also taught us how we can digitally govern cities and bring governance to the lowest level of governance, which is the ward level. and through the ICCCs, the integrated command and control centers, which have been set up in all the hundreds cities which have received the smart city funding, there I think lot of governance has happened through the ICCCs. And even during the pandemic period, I think the smart cities mission has helped in a great way by allowing these ICCCs to act as war rooms. And Bangalore was the first city to do so, and Mumbai, although not a smart city, but yet took the learnings from there, and also they tried to e-govern the entire management of the pandemic. So this is one very important learning. And if you look at the smart cities mission, I think the cities 2.0, which is again trying to establish uh, climate data observatories in at least 22 states. And when we look at the overall focus of the cities 2.0, which is basically on circularity, I think these are great learnings which have come from the smart cities mission. And the national urban digital mission, which in a way is also an offshoot of the smart cities mission, is trying to take governance digitally to all the 4,900 plus urban centers across the country.
Debolina, you talked about the command centers that were set up in the smart cities. How will that be taken forward, and what are the services that the command centers can offer?
So just now, I think the smart cities mission is likely to end in March 2025. However, the ICCCs, I think they have been a great support to all the 100 smart cities, and they have basically helped in traffic management in a big way, in the safety and security of the cities, in solid waste management, and a plethora of services. Even for property tax, the user charges, they are a very important tool of urban governance. And the another very important learning from the smart cities is the SPV, so which is again an alternative way of managing cities, where lot many technical specialists have been hired. And the setting up of war rooms, as I mentioned, Bangalore was the first case, and Mumbai, although a non-smart city, means I won't say non-smart, but city which is not a part of the smart cities mission, that learning was very important for Mumbai city as well. Then again, introduction of this competitive model. So we have the smart city itself came in 5 phases, right? The lighthouse city, and then there were several nomenclatures added. So that competitive climate which has been induced in the entire urban sector, I think that's also a way of encouraging the cities to be on track. Then we had this nurturing neighborhood challenge, where again parks and neighborhoods were uh, being tried to become child friendly. And if any city is child friendly, which means it's citizen friendly, right? We also tried to encourage the non motorized transports to make more walkable streets. Then there was the Eat Smart. Yeah, through the Nurturing Neighborhood Challenge, we tried to also work with child friendly cities in at least 25 cities which were qualified, and tried to also encourage non motorized transport. At least a few streets were made pedestrian friendly. Then, through the Eat Smart challenge, again, healthy food was encouraged through street vendors. Then there was a challenge called Cycle for Change, which again encouraged a lot of non-motorized transport in various cities which qualified for this challenge. And what is also very important is, um, in terms of financing, I think there also the Varanasi came in for introduction of the municipal bonds, which was also a very welcome move. And finally, through the smart cities mission, we tried to encourage youth in urban governance. So there were two. programs. One was the fellowship program through the Smart Cities Mission, and then through Tulip, there was the internship program. And here, uh, college students, university pass outs were engaged with the SPVs or with the city governments. So that was a very good learning for them. And you may be aware that many of these smart city fellows have are just now working either with the ministry in the smart cities mission and also at NIU. Many of them have been absorbed because their learning was very much interdisciplinary and also on ground. So that helped a lot. And as I also mentioned about the pandemic times, like the e-office working remotely, even for the government offices. So that became more a practice. So that was also a very big learning for all of us. Yes.
Debolina, during the pandemic, when we couldn't physically meet, a lot of the command centers were able to monitor, deliver services, deliver even medicines to the one people who were locked in. Uh, how can that translate in the future? Today we don't have a pandemic, but delivery of services, physical and virtual, through a command center to the citizens, has that enhance the delivery of.
Through the National Urban Digital Mission, this the question which you asked, that how can we take the delivery of services to the citizens, I think this is what the government is trying to do. We have the Upyog platform, where through which there are at least 16 services which are online just now. And I think out of the 31 states and UTs, most of them have been onboarded. There are at least one service which is being delivered online, and we are trying to make this pan India pan, and every city I think needs to have this and are working towards it. Although the level of maturation does differ from state to state and city to city, but through this effort, the government of India is trying to take governance digitally to the last person, and the last mile connectivity is thought to be addressed. And not only the services, but also in terms of tax collection or user charges, how do we integrate that? So those efforts are also on. So if you look at the Upyog platform, which is just now currently housed at NIUA, we can see on a real time basis what is the level of property tax collection in various wards of a city. So if one really wants to understand what is the level of service delivery, what is the level of tax collection, user charges, so that level of detailing is possible. And that is a great learning for us, and also that's the way to go. Because and that is also equipped through AI and GIS enabled technology is being used to take governance to the last person. And also we are thinking of taking doing this to the ward level or even the sub ward level. So just now there are several working groups set up by the government of India to ease urban governance and to make those citizen centric. So again, there is a great drive by the government to take citizen centric governance to the last person.
Can the citizens actually be part of the governance structure? I remember during the COVID, especially in cities like Bangalore, which was very badly hit at one point of time, they used the RWAs, they used the sub ward levels to create, to supplement the command centers and use them as the eyes on the ground kind of thing. Is Can something like that happen? Because right now, though we have a Swachh Bharat mission, there is a lot of, take Gurgaon for instance, it's drowning in its waste. And despite all the efforts over the last year and a half, they still haven't been able to solve that problem. How can you enlist citizen partnerships through your NUDM measure?
I think we are also working on those lines, because WhatsApp groups are being formed, and also we are through those we are trying to reach out to the citizens. Different apps are being developed, which has already happened in the state of Odisha. So, using those technologies, how can the citizen get their grievances redressed, first put up, and then within a specific time period, getting the redressal done? So, I think there is a lot of work at the back end happening, and you will get to see very soon. Yeah, and the involvement of the adults also.
Does it need any policy intervention to make it part of a process?
No, no, it's already in process.
Okay. Okay. Now, when you deploy technology, there are some. There are about 18 municipal functions, right? Which are the ones that have already used technology, and which are the ones where you think that technology usage should be better now?
So I think technology usage is already there in solid waste management, in property taxes, in user culture charge collection. Recently, we started on the fecal sludge management, both in rural areas and in urban areas, and the transitional areas which are neither urban nor rural. We are trying to spread even in those areas. So things are happening. We may not be in a very large scale, which is not very perceptible to each and every citizen, but through the missions, through the NUDM, and we are also trying to work together, not in silos, but bringing the learnings from all the missions on a common platform so that there is a lot of synergy and there is visibility on ground. So, and when you talk about what needs to be done, I think planning is one area. So there we really need to work through GIS based master planning, and also use AI to the extent possible. When this tool is already there, why not take the maximum utility from there and see that uh, the the cities grow in a manner that we do not see the growth of slums in future, and there is inclusive and sustainable development. I think those needs to be ensured. So if everything goes digital without human interface, that is also at times not very encouraging, because without the human interface, at times inclusive development doesn't happen. So that should be a well mix balance between both digital and human interventions for the good of their citizens. I think that's important.
So you spoke about slum-free cities. Now, in cities, what we've typically noticed is that any affordable housing comes in the peripheries, which are where the land is not quite so expensive as the city centers. Then what happens is that the people who are working, they come, they squat on whatever is available, because it is too, the cost of traveling from the periphery to the place of work becomes way too high, right? Uh, with all the planning interventions and the AI use of AI as well as human interface, do you think there is some way of bringing in, say, the elected representatives, the local representatives, the MLAs, and so on, so that at every point it is a citizen city partnership with aid of technology policy, and it's like a layered governance. Are we moving towards that?
Yeah, it's a very important point, I think, which you have mentioned, where the citizens, the people who govern, the elected representatives, and the people who are really managing the cities, the city managers, the commissioners, and the engineers, they all come together. And when we talk about housing, you rightly mentioned that we find more of city growth happening in the periphery, where land is cheap, labor is relatively cheap, and master plan norms are not that effective because they are beyond the municipal boundaries, very close the census towns, or maybe the rural areas in the vicinity of the large cities where the growth and all the mess is happening. So I think we also need to broaden the horizon of our governance, not stick to only the municipal boundaries, but to take it at least 15 to 20 kilometers beyond where the growth is happening, and do it in a manner where it is being planned as we grow. It doesn't happen organically. Like first the houses come and then we start laying the sewer lines and then the electricity cables. So it should be the other way around. The first the infrastructure and then the people, so that the mess which has already been created, because retrofitting becomes very difficult. So if it is more planned, and while we are planning, we should plan in an inclusive manner, because we cannot, and no city can do without the informal sector, right? So we need the street vendors, we need the rickshaw pullers, we need the newspaper vendors, we need the milkman. So why not plan for them while we are doing the city planning, and do not take this as an afterthought. So, planning for the people who really provide services to all of us, I think that's very important. And the way GNNURM was initially proposed, that reserve 15 to 25% of your housing space for the people who are serving you, right? The way we have in the government bungalows, we have the a quarter for the maids who are supporting us. So maybe some sort of thought about the lower income segment of the population, I think that's very important.
Should there be some kind of, you talked about the government bungalows. Today, the corporates who are employing very large volumes of daily wages, low end staff, and also the gig economy that it is, it's fostering. Uh, should the corporates be given some kind of incentive to get affordable housing or rental housing or something like that? If they provide rental housing to their own people, that they get tax incentives. Should something like that come up?
That's a very good idea. And as you rightly pointed out, I think those who are working in the gig economy, they also have a right to the city. So why not? And people do not come to a big city or to the cities from the small towns to own a house. They come for economic purpose, right? The first thing is you need to sustain yourself and your family, and you need a place to live. So instead of going in for owning a house, I think a rental accommodation provided by the corporate sector or the firm where you are working is very important. The way the you may be aware about the slum networking program which happened in Ahmedabad in the 90s, where Irvin Mills came up along with the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation and the slum dwellers. They contributed a fixed amount, and I think a 20-year tenure period was provided by the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, that for the next 20 years those slums won't be evicted, and things worked. So something of that sort. I'm not saying that slums need to grow, but there needs to be low income housing, and on a rental basis, taken where the owners of those concerns do take the responsibility of providing housing. I think that's very important. Not only housing, but also basic services.
Is there something in the works in this, or this is a new idea that has to be worked out?
Uh, I won't say that it's a new idea altogether. I think there are industrial sectors which are coming up with such provisions, but I think that needs to happen in a big way. Just now, it's not. So it should become more evident in the way the housing is being provided.
And is this 250 going to, are you growing this number so that every urban center, especially because command centers are coming up, command centers have become a repository of data, will this see a multiplication?
Yeah, so we have of late collected data from around 252 cities under the Climate Smart Cities Assessment Framework, and then that got merged into the Urban Outcome Framework. But not only climate, but from all various verticals which have a bearing on the urban sector. We have collected data from the 100 smart cities, and about a handful of 150 other cities, and this data is in public domain. So if one really wants to know what is the status of municipal finance in the country, at least you have some idea about those 250 cities for which the data is there, and that really helps again in policy. So if you want to go for evidence-based policy formulation, I suppose this becomes very critical. So until and unless you have the data, how do you know for whom are you planning and how do you plan? So that becomes the root of any any policy decision. See, from the ICCCs, there is a data on a real-time basis, and the data which I spoke about is not the real-time data that has been collected by various agencies. So I think it is a good idea to have a mix of both the survey data as well as the real-time data. Rather, real-time data is the need of the hour, and it is helping us in a big way. But then this ICCCs need to increase their coverage, and also new ICCCs need to come up in the country. So only when you can have GIS based various layers coming from GIS and also AI. I think until and unless we have this, be it climate, be it normal city growth, I think in all areas of interventions, this would be very important. And education and health as well. Why do we leave those two components, which are very critical in any growth of cities or even rural areas? Wherever rural and urban merge, I think those transitional areas are also very critical when you look at health issues or at for education itself.
So we are talking about urbanization, and we're talking about urban governance, not only in the top 7 cities, 8 cities, or even in the top 35 cities. We are now talking about thousands of cities, right? 4,000 cities, another 5,500 census towns, which can become urban agglomerations. Uh, what do you do to teach urban governance there? The capacity building initiatives.
So we have the Mission Karam Yogi, the IGOT platform uh, at the central level, and which has its arms spread across the country. But I think through the National Urban Learning Platform, the NULP, which is again housed at the National Institute of Urban Affairs, we need to really work more closely with the cities. That is again a need of the hour, because until and unless our elected representatives, the city officials, are really capacitated, we won't be able to meet the challenges of a growing urban India. So there, the need for capacity of city officials become very important, and it would be important to also include the centers of excellence which have been funded by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and also the state ATIs are there. There are the RCUS are there across the country. So I think capacitating those existing ones is important. And how do we work as a team instead of working in silos? I think it is important to work as a team as we go ahead.
I'll touch a little bit about waste management, which is part of the entire urban governance. There are some cities which have done exceptionally well in the urban waste management, whether it is solid management, liquid waste management. They've Some have experimented with carbon credits, some have experimented with completely reusing. The National Highways Authority is using the plastic that comes out of the waste, so that that can be utilized. So. Uh, uh, how do you take the learnings of all these various experiments that have happened around the country in waste management, and make sure that if you're talking about a Swachh Bharat 2, for instance, what will that look like, and how soon can Indian cities actually shed this thing of uh, rampant waste?
We, as you the point which you mentioned, that there are so many good practices across the country, right? And those are being showcased through the National Urban Learning Platform. We have modules, more than 200 use cases are there. So it is important for the cities to understand and to take the learnings from there and go ahead. Because urban development is a state subject, the central government can nudge, but they cannot make the cities do. So there should be an urge from the citizens. Again, the local self governments, the cities cannot do until and unless the citizens they themselves take the ownership. If I throw all my garbage on the streets and I expect that the MCD will clean it on a daily basis, it's wrong on my part. I need to also do what I am supposed to do as a citizen. So that awareness, the sensitization on the part of the citizens is also very important if we want to take SBM to level 3. Why do we need to do so? If we, as a citizen, I do my job, then I don't think that the government needs to do a lot.
So, is there capacity building required at the citizen level?
Yes, it is. Capacity, not, I won't say capacity, I think it's the awareness which is important, the sensitization of the citizen, that government cannot do all. You as a citizen also have your obligations towards the city, towards your neighborhood, towards yourself. So everything cannot be done by the government. The citizen's role is also very important, a very important stakeholder in governance.
One last question. When today we are seeing heat being one of the biggest enemies, right? Too much water and too much heat are things that cities are contending with. When you have this urban heat island effect and things like that, what is it that can be done? Is there any research happening in that? Because we hit over 50 degrees in North Indian cities last year, and it's quite possible we could do that again. And we've also seen that city after city has had peak rainfall, intense peak rainfall, and flooding, waterlogging, and so on. So these are two very, something that is palpable in the cities today. So what can technology do? What can our knowledge of technology?
So first and foremost, I suppose the way many of the cities are going brown, just cutting the trees, felling of trees is happening, and we are going more high rise, or the sprawl which is happening, right? And also we are constructing houses, buildings on water bodies, right? We are forgetting about the natural biodiversity. So again, here I think the concerns of the citizens is very important. So if I have one house, I can do even without owning another house. So what the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned in one of the COPs, I think, the life mission, take environment as your lifestyle. I think that's very important. The We need to really understand the importance of biodiversity, having a clean environment, and also while we are constructing the buildings, what we do is we block the natural drainage. So having a sense of that, and whatever construction or growth happens in future, that should be in a more sustainable manner. I think until and unless we do that, we can't solve either flooding or the high temperatures which we are seeing witnessing, and that is likely to grow. So lot many I think, and all stakeholders, be it the private sector, the public sector, and the citizens at large, I think each and every one of us, we need to really take proactive steps just now and not wait for tomorrow. That's very important in terms of how we do what we do, and what future ways of development we try and visualize today. I think in every component there needs to be the the green component very strongly, and we have only one planet, so we cannot go somewhere else tomorrow.
We are doing our best to destroy that one planet.
Exactly. And through Amrut mission, we are trying to again recharge the aquifers and all. But then, how much can the government do? The people also should understand that there is a limit to government interventions.
And I suppose the solution lies in making citizens a partner in the urban governance initiative, right?
In the process of development, in whatever we do, I think that should be a thoughtful use of resources. So instead of taking two cars for the same destination, why can't we pool our the cars, right? Why can't we have last mile connectivity to public transport? So those things, I think, play a very vital role in the days to come, the way we govern ourselves.
And that's the message I suppose we should end with. Let's govern ourselves through the center, through the cities, through the states, through urban planning, and of course, most importantly, with the help of the citizens, who are the most interested stakeholders in the city. Right? Thank you so much, Debolina, for joining us.